You're listening to the Esoterics Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Fioraliz.
And I am Jo. This is the Esoterics Podcast.
Hi, Jo. How you doing?
I am so good. I am really good today. The sun is starting to peek out here in non-sunny Portland, and yeah, it's a good day.
What have you been doing lately?
I've been in school. I've been in my metalsmith class. That's been really, really fun,
cool.
and I'm learning how to master craftsmanship because I already know how to do the things in this segment of it, but I'm learning new techniques from in a formal classroom setting.
Yeah.
But I'm learning how to focus on the craftsmanship of it, like the cleanup, the polishing, all that good stuff. So, so that's been fun. And it's been really sunny and beautiful here in the city for the last week, with the exception of yesterday it rained, but it's just really unusual for January. So the other day I took Hollis to this really cool place called Kelly Point Park. And it's this, it's where the Willamette River here and the Columbia River meet and merge into the Columbia. So
that sounds
so
beautiful.
that's what I've been doing. What about you?
I've been doing more creative projects at home, which, yeah, I've been good at like just collecting things, just like, I'm just going to buy this and then eventually I'll do it. And then finally getting to the actual doing. So I've been doing some wire wrap jewelry, just trying to learn how to do that. And I was telling you how Charlie, my parrot, always leaves me feathers, because that's all he does all day is grooms himself.
Are they yellow?
They're green.
Green. Oh,
he
pretty.
leaves me the green feathers. Yeah, the green ones. Yeah, they're green. They're really beautiful. They're green, a little bit of gray with a touch of blue.
Oh,
they're really beautiful feathers. So I made some earrings out of his feathers.
Hey, that's so exciting! That you'll have to take a picture of yourself with them on and post it on Instagram or y'all. Listen, Charlie is her parrot, and he is the cutest little bird, but he cannot be trusted. He will turn on you and bite you in a minute. He cannot be trusted at all.
Yeah, but he is beautiful. So I'm gonna have some ethically sourced feather earrings.
Nice.
But yeah, other than that, yeah, it's been cool though. Actually, it'll be perfect for what we're talking about today, but we'll get to that.
So I hope that we can both put together some jewelry and bracelets and earrings and pendants and stuff to have for sale at the retreat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, not going to be super expensive, but
awesome.
Be fun for people to buy some of our jewelry.
We'll see how many feathers Charlie drops between now and then.
Right? I would love a pair of Charlie earrings.
All right. So let's get into our announcements. Actually, that's perfect. More details on that said retreat. Our retreat is coming up. That is going to take place May 27th through May 29th in West Olive, Michigan. So this is just minutes from the Lake Michigan shore.
It's a short walk. Yep.
Yes. So as of today, when this episode airs, our price is now $888. So this is available with a payment plan. So we can be flexible for everyone, make this fit your budget. We also have add-ons available for a small group up to 6 people. This is a private integration time with Jo and I on Monday the 30th.
You can extend your stay one day. Everything's included. Food and lodging and all that stuff, I think, is included.
Yep. So for more details, make sure to see the link in the show notes of this episode, and that's esotericspodcast.com.
That is a great announcement. I'm so excited.
And what do you have, Jo?
Well, I am once again offering a live class. I stopped doing that and changed to digital video classes just because I had other things in my life, but now some space is opening up. I have an intuitive development live 4-week work group. This is being held over Zoom. And in this work group, we're going to do things a little bit differently. Okay. I'm going to teach you how to harness Akashic energy to connect with your intuition and your higher self. And this is just going to help you strengthen your relationship with your higher self and develop your intuitive abilities by being able to tap into that energy. And here's the thing too, if you don't consider yourself intuitive, or you're worried that you're not skilled enough to join this work group, just know that anyone can do this. It doesn't take any special ability other than strong intention, which we'll cover, and the belief that you absolutely are capable of receiving answers from your soul, answers from your higher self, which you all. So we'll just work on that mindset a little bit and get everybody ready to tap into that energy. It's a 4-week class. It takes place on Sundays. And I'm also offering 2 time slots each day, or each Sunday, so that you have options, right? You can make the earlier one, which is in Pacific Standard Time, or the later one, which is better for Eastern Standard Time people. And then all of the details, what you'll learn in each week, all of that, the link to enroll is all on, it's in the Esoterics community. It's on the Akashic Studio page. It's on, we'll put up put it on the Esoterics podcast page.
Yeah.
And then, so there's lots of ways to join, but enrollment is just $111 for 4 weeks, and it breaks down to $30 a session. Well, actually like 27. But listen, you guys, the weeks cannot be purchased individually. This is a package only, because each week is going to build off the week prior. And so reference materials are going to be provided. You'll get a download after the class. But here's the thing. If you are unable to make a specific session, you'll be given the link. But each work group session is live. So enrolling is a commitment, and sessions won't be recorded, but I may convert this to a downloadable class in the future. So just know that I'm really excited to share all of this with you. If you can't make a session, I will work with you, but know that it's a commitment, and you don't want to miss out if you don't have to.
Yep. That's a steal too at that price.
It really is. And I was and I wasn't struggling with it because, of the money. I was struggling with it because I want people to value it, be committed, and really feel like it's a valued service. But I also want it to be affordable.
Yep.
And so, so that's it. That's all I have for my enrollments, or for my announcements. What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about the inner child and shadow work around the inner child.
Yay! Yes, we mentioned this a little bit in last week's episode, and so I'm excited about it because a lot of people need it this week, I think.
So I feel like today is going to be a loud Charlie day because he's just going off in the background. So if you just hear beeps, it's not my smoke alarm. It's
Charlie.
Mm-hmm. So just FYI. Because I'm not going to be able to go down there and turn him off.
It's not loud. I mean, I can hear him in the background too, but it's not loud. It's not even distracting.
He just beeps. Yeah. So anyway,
he's chirping.
Yeah. Oh God. So inner child healing. I'm going to talk about who the inner child is and signs you may need this. But first, I gotta say before we get into this is, if you saw the title of today's episode and you thought, I might skip this one, that might be a sign that you need to do this work.
Right?
Yeah. Have you done inner child work for a long time, Jo? Or when do you feel like you first started doing that?
Gosh, I started my journey in 2014, and it started with shadow work. That was sort of how I got my foot in the door. So, but yeah, I do inner child work even today. If I'm upset with something, I'll ask, well, what does the child need?
Yeah.
So yes, but no.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get this refresher.
So, okay. So we've discussed shadow work before. So I'm going to break down each topic along the way for anyone that maybe is this their first time and haven't been exposed to any of this. Shadow work is essentially bringing up the awareness of the parts of yourself. This goes back to Jungian psychology about the parts of ourselves that we repress because we deem them, quote unquote, like bad or like negative or whatever. Although I would say that it's not a good idea to label any parts of yourself good or bad. But so things like anger, frustration, resentment, jealousy, those are, I would say, like the shadow aspects of a person. So that's shadow work. Shadow work is essentially just bringing awareness to these parts of ourselves, and like it's like pulling out the a plant, and like you're pulling out the roots, and then you're taking a look at like, where is this coming from? How is the root system of this, how does it look, and is it looking healthy? And it's not about getting rid of your shadow aspects. Your shadow aspects are going to be part of you. It's more about integrating them and understanding what triggers you and where that comes from. And then once you really bring awareness to the triggers and where it all stems from, you can very much more easily get over it and work through it and live to essentially your highest self after that. And then who is the inner child? So the inner child is actually the representation of ourselves at various times during our lives. So during our childhood, during our adolescence. So we can have different versions of the inner child at the different ages. Just kind of depends on what happened during those times. So this part of us is usually very connected to our natural enthusiasm, our curiosity, our creativity, um, our imagination, all these things that we experienced when we were children. When it comes to the inner child, these experiences that happen to us, they can be traumas, and it's funny because my sister and I talked about this, and when we talk about traumas and our wounds that we gather when we're children, when you're thinking back and you come up with something, it's really important to not try to like put it on a scale compared to other people. You can put it on a scale, I guess, compared to yourself, like, shit that happened along your life, but it's not the trauma Olympics. So don't, like, just because somebody, was like kidnapped and, uh, awful things happened to them, doesn't mean that like because your mom yelled at you, like that you're not also damaged. You know what I mean? So it's really important to not compare traumas to other people, because it doesn't matter. Like if it affected you, it affected you, and that's it. That's all that matters. And then that's where this process starts, as far as recognizing what you need to do or what you can do, um, and working through that. So there's a few signs that you may need to do some healing on your inner child. So the first one is feeling highly reactive. So sometimes when our inner child appears in our daily lives and we find ourselves being like quickly reactive to situations, or suddenly feeling very irritated or very detached, usually it's like our adult self is trying to manage or control what's going on the outside, but that's like the inner child kind of like coming in. And again, we talked about this before about the ego, right? The ego is trying to protect us, and the ego is formed by the inner child. So a lot of times people who haven't done inner child work have an out of control ego. um, so that's again, that's all connected. So connected again to that, to the ego thing too, maybe overvaluing independence is another sign that your inner child needs healing. It can be that like, no, I'm great alone, like I'm super independent, I don't need anyone, like I don't need help and all that. That a lot of times comes from how we grew up. Like maybe we didn't have that help growing up, or we were punished for asking for help, um or we felt alone. So instead of understanding that, we just grew into what we felt like we needed to grow into, which was becoming super independent. And like, no, like, okay, I don't have anyone, so I that means that I don't need anyone, and I'm just going to do this for myself, and I'm never going to ask for help. And so if you feel that that might describe you, that might be a sign that you need some child work. Another is destructive coping behaviors. So these are things like too much alcohol or too much shopping, cheating, gambling, too much food, or
Mm-hmm.
even chronic procrastination. Again, these are just things of a lot of this is either trying to bury the emotion, right? Like alcohol does that, food does that. Um, and then with the shopping, cheating, and all that, that's more like instant gratification. Like I don't know how to meet my own needs, so I'm looking for outside sources to make me feel better.
Girl, I was a chronic shopper in my like 20s and 30s and even my 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I would get paid and I would go buy a brand new outfit and oh,
Mm-hmm.
I was all about clothes. You know, some people are about household stuff, not
Yeah.
me. I was all about clothes. Oh, I had the best wardrobe, but it
Yeah.
was all, trauma response shopping. So,
Yep. I was the same way, but I mine came from because my mom is a child of a narcissist. So my mom had a lot of stuff that she obviously needed to work through herself that, she maybe didn't. And so she was physically abused, verbally abused. Um so she had trouble, like like not, what's the word, not nurturing, like making us feel better, especially after she lashed out, and she had a tendency to really lash out. So the way that she would try to comfort us after she'd done something like that was to buy us stuff. Like that's how she showed
right.
affection. She only knew how to show affection through like buying you things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and that transferred over into like me being an adult and like just
Mm-hmm.
buying shit, and but once I recognized, like, oh, that's where that comes from, like I really allow myself to not do that for myself anymore, unless just really evaluating, like, do I need this, do I want this, where is this going to go, is it going to take up space in my life that I'm not going to be willing to put in the energy long term. Like there's all this, like these things that go into it now. Like even I was thinking about this morning. Have you heard of the water pick toothbrush, the water pick
Yeah.
thing for your teeth?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have very limited countertop space in my bathroom right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to do it because it's going to take up space in in my room, in my life, that I don't want to give up. Like I don't want to give up countertop space. That's important to me.
But it's a water pick
I
toothbrush.
know. You know what? When I get my next house and I have more room and I can redesign my bathroom, I'm gonna design it
Then you
around
will.
having a place to put my water pick where it's not gonna look ugly. So
No, okay.
yeah.
Nice. I like
So
it. I look
I have
forward to seeing
plans, but for now,
it. Okay.
that's a no.
Okay. All right.
All right. So another sign that you may need to do some inner child healing is poor emotional and mental health. So this can come up in a lot of ways, like
Mhm.
depression or just feeling unmotivated, especially when you like consistently feel unmotivated. It's normal to have your ups and downs. That's just human nature. But when you consistently feel unmotivated, um, when you want more and more time alone, um, or even just like away from your friends, avoiding that avoidance thing can manifest in different ways. Not wanting to have sex or wanting more sex to keep the partner connected, like you're
Yeah.
not capable of feeling the connection to your partner outside of sex.
Hmm.
Sleep difficulties, weight gain or weight loss, not feeling as focused or productive at work, and increased anxiety in different areas of your life.
The interesting thing about all of this is that, I can look at these and I can say, oh, I'm struggling with my up level right now. And I'm experiencing, all of those things.
Hmm.
So it's interesting how these these manifestations of our emotional health show up, um, how, how they show up,
Yeah.
where you can see them in pretty much any circumstance,
Hmm.
right?
Yep. Another reason, another symptom, and this one's a big one, is repeating patterns in your relationships. So I think
Yeah.
we see this one all the time. As the one that comes like real like comes to mind first for me is the relationship of women who encounter very toxic men and like find themselves in the repeated cycle of a relationship with a toxic man, just a different guy, same shit. And a lot of it stems from the relationship that they had with their own father or
Oh
sometimes even with their own
yeah.
mother. And again, that's
Yep.
that inner child that was lacking something
Mm-hmm.
as a child. But it's a trauma response in the way of it's so like it I don't even know the word for it. But okay, the idea that with the in the trauma brain that it's much more comfortable to be in a relationship with someone that is familiar, that feels familiar to you in that way. Like if your
Mm-hmm.
father was an awful man who was maybe emotionally avoidant to you and verbally abusive, that familiarity is more comforting than someone who treats you right and someone like because that in again in the trauma brain and in that wounded inner child it's like no, I know this man, that's my dad, and so because I know him, like that is safer. It is safer to stick to what you know in the trauma brain than to venture out into the unknown because that feels more unsafe.
Well, and also as the child, you learn to develop coping mechanisms and skills to handle that
Yeah.
discomfort specifically. So even though that comfort comes not from the fact that it's actually comforting,
Mm-hmm.
it comes from the fact that you say, I know how to handle
Yeah.
this. I know how to handle
Yeah.
this. And that's when your negative coping skills and mechanisms
Mm-hmm.
come into play, and that's where the cycle
Yep.
starts. But yeah, that comfort is, it's not actual
Yeah.
comfort. I think it's more
Yeah, familiarity.
familiarity
Mm-hmm.
or the ability to,
Or just
deal.
the comfort of familiarity, which that is it
Yes.
really shouldn't be a thing, but it is, and it's just how
Yeah.
we work.
Yeah. It's sad because familiarity and comfort and familiarity when it's in a good situation like family
Yeah.
and friends, it's the most amazing feeling. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this makes me so sad for everybody's inner child. It's like, no, they all need hugs.
Yeah. So the way that these things can manifest, these repeating patterns can manifest, are being avoidant during a conflict or when a partner brings up their feelings. That's usually maybe the way that a caregiver would
Yeah.
approach you when
Yeah,
you
my mom did that shit.
they would just ignore you, give you the silent treatment, just
Hmm.
pretend like it didn't happen, or
Yep, call you to tell you that you're overreacting
gaslighting.
and hysterical.
hmm Being dismissive of a partner's needs or your own needs in the relationship, like putting the other person's needs first. This happens a lot, especially when someone's like the oldest child and they were made to basically be the caregiver for everyone else, and they were made to feel like their needs didn't matter. um, Gaslighting yourself into believing that there aren't problems when there are, or vice versa.
Or that you're the problem.
Yeah, I've seen this. That one I've seen with people who are like, "No, everything's fine, everything's great." But it's like, well,
Yep.
what if that's your trauma response? Is like, no, everything's fine, everything's great, everything's always fine, everything's
Hmm.
great. So you never allow yourself to not be okay. And sometimes it's normal for all of us to have a day when we're just not okay. Um, Another
Agreed.
way that these attachment patterns can look like is being anxious or fearful within the relationship, therefore trying to please the partner above everything else. And then also having a deep fear of being abandoned or rejected by your partner.
It's important to remember that you're not only feeling your own emotions, but you're also feeling the responses and the triggers and the emotions of the other person. So, when you're feeling anxious or fearful, it's because you're feeling double the emotions or double the fear, or this person's getting upset or angry or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So those patterns can be tied to your empathic ability, which is why it's even more important to learn how to manage your empathic abilities and your energy and that sort of
Yep.
thing. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. About the being an empath is because you can already feel that person's reaction
You
when
can,
you're
yep, before
saying.
before it's even coming, and and then the other things that you talked about, like having a deep fear of being abandoned or rejected,
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's huge.
yeah, and it's shitty how some of those things can form because yeah,
Hmm.
sometimes they can be from our caregivers, from our parents, from our family,
Hmm.
but sometimes it's also if you were bullied.
Yep.
If you were bullied in school, the way that you were
Hmm.
treated by other kids,
Hmm.
if you were felt excluded,
Yep.
that that can form those rejections. Um, the fear of abandonment because you're the feel that feeling of being left out.
Yep.
Yeah, it can manifest in a lot of different ways, so it's not
A lot
always
of different ways. Like,
directly our parents, but yeah, it can just be from our environment, who we were around. Okay, so after all of this, now we talk about how to connect with the inner child and how to do the work. So first, I think it's just understanding the pain equation to stop suffering. So if you have pain and you multiply that by resistance, that equals suffering. So the best thing you can do, like an equation, is subtract the resistance, right? So we take away the resistance and then we can ease the suffering. So when we do this with inner child work, I would say out of all the different types of shadow work that you can do, inner child work can be really fun. And it really like where some of the other stuff is kind of you get into journal prompts and it feels like a lot more work. Because with the inner child, the intention behind it is that you're trying to connect with them through their language and remembering that the language that you understood as a child was more emotionally based, and like you were more receptive to people's physical cues and remembering how things felt in your body, like things felt in your body a lot stronger when you were smaller, like that feeling, like when you're getting yelled at or like you get in
Right.
trouble, like you just feel it in your stomach. Or when you would cry and how it was like the crying would get stuck and then you're like you like you couldn't breathe, and all those ways that it was definitely much more the emotion was so much more physically based than it may be as an adult. So when we get into
Yes.
doing this work, you're trying to connect with this child through these physical reactions, but on that positive note of remembering like what felt good in your body, like what felt really good to you, and um, maybe that feeling of like swinging on a swing and like when it feels like your guts are like flying out. Like it
Right.
was,
Fun.
yeah, it's
Fun.
fun, yeah, and it brings back these joyous times. um so one simple way to connect with your inner child is you can do it through a guided meditation. There's plenty of them out there on YouTube. That helps, especially if you had a especially traumatic childhood. um just note that that child may not uh, easily come to you. They may be pretty reluctant at first to come and be close to you because they're not used to it. But take your time with that and be gentle with yourself. But an easy way to do it is do activities that you enjoyed as a child. So if it was like coloring in a coloring book, jumping rope, going outside, climbing a tree, um, being out in nature. I used to love like concocting things of just mixing plants together and adding water and whatever and like making potions. It didn't make any sense. But I love doing that shit. Uh,
Yeah. That's past life recall right there.
yeah, dressing up, laughing, using your imagination, your sense of wonder, like whatever allows you to connect with that. Playing catch or doing like a relay race, or going maybe to like an amusement park playing bumper cars, things like that. They can just help you take that play into a physical form. um, Another really good way that I personally enjoy is, this is pretty nostalgic, right? But consuming media, or if you don't have access to like toys that you play with, because that can get expensive. Like my husband has Star Wars toys that his mom actually like kept for him since his childhood. Like he has like the original like late 70s, early 80s like authentic Star Wars toys, and those
Nice.
things are expensive. I'm like,
Right.
but it's crazy how, like he plays with them with our son, and you can just see like that inner child like come how it comes out. It's really beautiful. But if you don't
Mhm.
have access to the toys, um watching there's plenty of commercials that are available on YouTube. Like you can watch, like, remember, like whatever your favorite toy was. Like I know I didn't have like necessarily a favorite toy, but I always wanted what's the little oven thing, like
The Easy Bake Oven.
the easy bake oven. I always wanted an easy bake oven, but I love those
Girl, I got one
commercials.
of those as an adult, and I made pies and cakes and
See,
everything. Tasted like shit, but I did not care. I was like, I'll eat this fucking pie that tastes like shit because it made it in my Easy Bake Oven.
yeah. So see, that's a great inner child practice right there. Okay, so my sister, and I'll link these in the show notes. My sister took a coding class, and I don't know if it was a class project that they did. I think it was a class project that they did. They made these websites called my90stv.com, and they also have a my80stv.com. And it's so cool. Like it has all these different channels that you can tune into. And so you
Shut
can,
up.
yes, you can do music, commercials, soap operas, like anything from your childhood that you watch, and obviously the cartoons, animations, they're all on there. Yeah.
Oh, I loved the Saturday morning cartoons. I've said this before. The kids these days, they have no idea.
No, they're
None. That's,
missing.
man, from the time you woke up until like noon, it was
Yeah.
nothing but
Yep.
badass cartoons, Flintstones and Scooby Doo, and Tom and Jerry, and
Yep.
those are super old school. But then like the Laugh Olympics and Josie and the Pussycats, all that stuff. That
Yep.
was bomb.
Yeah, and it was cool. I remember being a kid and watching Tom and Jerry, and just Looney Tunes in general, and my mom watching it and being like, "Oh,
You're
I
right.
watched this when I was a kid." And
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, "Oh, well, let's watch it together." And it was something that we did together just briefly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like 90s TV, especially because a lot of us 90s kids were unfortunately raised by the TV.
Right.
Like,
It's true. It's
we
true.
really, really were. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of content on there. So those websites are really cool to get into like that energy and allowing yourself to just like laugh and enjoy and just tune into that part of yourself that maybe it's been a long time since you tuned into that. So
Mhm.
it's cool. It's just reconnecting. Um, so that those are all like easy, fun ways to connect with that inner child. Other ways that you can nurture your inner child are by reinforcing nurturing messages and behaviors that maybe you didn't get as a child. So, if you had a difficult relationship with your mother, you can mother yourself.
Right.
That's not something that is exclusive to only your mother. Like now you are an adult and you can take these internalized negative beliefs that we may have, put on ourselves, um, and eliminate those messages that we got from maybe as we were children, like maybe we weren't good enough or we weren't efficient quick enough, like we're always rushing, like hurry up, that we weren't strong or brave or whatever it was. It's just a list. So try listening to yourself and give yourself, I think I touched on this last week, of that self validation, self-affirming messages, saying things to yourself like, I'm proud of you, I love you, or I am listening, because a lot of times it's just like we didn't have somebody who actually listened to us. So the more you connect with the actions, with those words, just keep saying these things to yourself. So for example, if you promise that you can take a break from work and read a few pages of your favorite book, or that you'll put your phone away for an hour before bed so you can get a good night's rest, these are things that are important to keep promises to yourself, because this is what fosters trust within yourself and therefore trust with your inner child.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And then a fun astrology way to look at inner child inner child work is look at your fifth house in astrology, because the fifth house is the house of play and creativity. So it's most associated with children and childhood. So the placements of this can give you a hint as to what your relationship to childhood is. It can give you a deeper understanding of your own inner child. The fourth house is about where we came from and the stability around the home. Your placements in this house may give you insight into your childhood and provide clarity on how you were shaped into who you are today.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. A lot of times with the inner child, it's just that feeling of feeling neglected. So when this happens, your adult will feel neglected as well. So this energy just gets mirrored back. So a lot of times, if we felt this way as a child, then we project these things out onto other people as adults. But so when you start building this relationship, it's not just healing that little kid, it's also healing for yourself as the adult. And it allows you to just be more able and capable of handling the challenges that come up on your life and having a lot of compassion for yourself. And that self compassion is what helps foster a healthy and happy relationship with yourself. And then in turn, it can also give you some creative outlets that help you form more meaningful relationships and foster a sense of adventure for yourself as an adult.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And lastly, it's so when you're doing this work, it doesn't mean that you're avoiding growing up. When you're going out to look for your inner child, it's more of an indicator that you're ready to face your past, and that in itself is one of the bravest things that you can do for yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
This is such good information, especially for people that don't know, how to even start doing shadow work. Because it's a key phrase or,
Yeah.
a key word or whatever.
Yeah.
And people are like, what does that even mean? And honestly, as much as shadow work is based in Jungian psychology,
Yeah.
his stuff is super dry and ew, it's like fucking Tole, right? It's just boring and it doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, I hate this. But
Yeah.
the concepts, when somebody takes them in puts them in a contemporary format, are life changing. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it, like I said, it doesn't have to be something tedious or like boring. Like it can be something as simple as like, what was your favorite ice cream when you were a kid, and
yeah.
allowing yourself to have one of those, like, and connecting with it, like, hey, like we're doing this, we're having this, like, and then allowing yourself to get back into that memory of how good that felt, how fun that helped. Or like if you were the kid who like always wanted an ice cream from the ice cream truck, but like your parents never let you get one, or whatever it was, like you went somewhere and you always wanted to get that thing, they're always like, no, you can't have it. And no, go to the store and get it for yourself.
Right.
Like you are allowed to have the thing that you always wanted to have. Like let that kid have it.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that inner child work is just one piece of the shadow work puzzle. There's, oh my gosh, there's so much to it, but this is the piece that helps you sort of get over, I don't know about get over, but, cope with, or gives you coping mechanisms for, when you peel that onion and it all boils down to the fact that your inner child isn't getting their needs met.
Yeah.
And so what you can do to meet them in the moment that can help alleviate some of the trauma.
Yeah. And definitely understanding too, though, that this work is ongoing. Like Joe said in the beginning, I mean, like, when your journey started and it started and you did some work around there too, but it's consistent because there are parts of yourself that are going to pop up just throughout your life. And as situations arise where you might feel triggered, or you might feel like some of those shadow aspects just pop up, and it's recognizing like, oh, like that doesn't feel right. Where does that come from? And then allowing yourself to dig into that, like, okay, where is this coming from? What does this remind me of? When have I felt like this before? And getting to the bottom of it and then allowing yourself to work through it so that you can just release it or integrate it into your life, and so that it doesn't have to bother you so much anymore.
Yeah. I love that. Okay.
Yeah, so that's all I had for you today.
Well, thank you so much. It's such good information. You guys bookmark this episode, and you'll want to refer back to it.
Yeah. And also, if you did want more details on, in each of my 3 shadow work classes, both the introduction, manifestation, and the finance one, we do talk about the inner child and how certain things from our childhood um, contribute to shadow aspects around manifestation and around finance. So these are things that are integrated. So if you want more detailed, guided work with journal prompts and all that, my classes are on my website. So that's all in our show notes. But
Yeah, definitely.
you have anything for the
The closing vibe
today?
I do, actually. So I want to talk today about karmic debt, because a lot of people that book an Akashic reading, they want to know what karma has accumulated over their lifetimes and what do they need to do about it. So I just want to do some clarification on it. That karmic debt, the goal is not to have an absence of karma. It's important to remember that we are here incarnate because we have karma to work out and thus lessons to learn. So there's no, I don't know that there's any way that you could ever completely balance your karma. I mean, I bet you even the Dalai Lama has freaking karma. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Or,
Yeah.
you know, Mother Teresa, because I heard she was a jerk, to be honest. Like, I heard that she
sounds kind of mean.
She was mean. She was a mean little fucking bugger. But she did the work of God. So it's like, look the other way. Look the other way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's got some karma. She needs to. Anyway, so when it comes to karmic debt, every single soul blueprint contains karma in either the form of debt or lessons. Okay. And so just briefly, lessons are skills that you have to learn to develop in your current lifetime. We'll talk about those in the future. But right now we're going to focus on debt. And that's based on decisions that were made in your past or a past lifetime. All right. So the universal law of karma states that we are held responsible for our actions and, more precisely, for the intention behind those actions. So, those people who do these nice things, but the intention is to get rewarded or recognized. And so that's karma, man. But karma is not all about cosmic justice or divine retribution or punitive actions. It's not. It's important to know because from the perspective of spirit, there's no need for cosmic justice because there's no such thing as cosmic injustice.
Okay.
So the example that I gave, and I did a live on this in the Facebook group, so you can check that out. It's got a forecast and other things in it, but an example is that I was helping a state police cadet solve a cold case using my psychic medium abilities. And the victim told me that, justice is a human construct. So when I asked the spirit, do you want to identify your killer or anything like that? And they were super ambivalent about it. They're like, yeah, no, justice is a human construct. It has nothing to do with us. So at that point I was like, all right, we're done here.
Wow.
Yeah. She was kind of a jerk, but, in a very ambivalent way. So anyway, so souls tend to commit karmic acts also in the early stages of their reincarnations. So remember, what episode was it where we talked about, there were several that we talked about baby souls, young souls, old souls.
Oh. It was soul groups and soul families. It was the episode.
Yeah, and then when they tend to reincarnate, like young baby souls tend to reincarnate in very in geographies and civilizations that are, or there's a lot of fighting and stuff like that, like the Middle East and stuff.
It was episode 9. For anyone that wants to.
Okay, so dig into that because it's super interesting. But souls tend to commit karmic acts in the early stages of their reincarnation when they have less experience of being a human or human experiences or human existence, I should say. And those typical acts are murder, rape, imprisonment. It's where one person imposes something on another against their will. And so, that's when you accumulate karma for your acts. There's no karmic debt for acts that are accidental or not by choice, right?
Okay.
That's not karma. Now, I'm not saying what I think that means is that there's no karmic accrual, because who's to say that if you accidentally hit somebody and take their life, you then have to experience, all of the repercussions of that. But if they took your life in a previous, then that's the balancing of karma. So there might be some karmic balancing in acts that are accidental or not by choice, but definitely not a karmic accrual.
Okay.
We are constantly in the process of accruing in or balancing our karmic debts for or debts of responsibility for our actions. And so we carry that karma forward from one lifetime into the next to pay off those debts rather than accruing new ones. So that's sort of explains what I was just talking about. And then when we get that debt, we either find ourselves presented with the same lesson again and again within one lifetime until we gain the wisdom and value of the lesson that's being presented, or we reincarnate and carry the karma over from one lifetime to the next. So, if you have this karmic debt and then you're killed in a lifetime and you still haven't balanced that debt, then in the next lifetime you're going to be asked to readdress that. But the thing is that our higher self is very patient with our process of learning. So the higher self is like,
take your time.
Take your time, and I'm not going to cut you any slack because it has to be addressed. So, so that's basically, what I wanted to talk about is that karma is about the opportunity to balance by being given the opportunity to balance by making different choices than those that actually caused our karmic debt in the first place. And that is, in a nutshell, spiritual growth. So, maybe that wraps it up for some people, because I know a lot of people are worried about karmic debt and, afraid of it and all that stuff. And it's not a huge, it's not as big as people think it is, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that.
Wow. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Okay, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. You can find us on all the socials under Esoterics Podcast, and be sure to join our Facebook community, the Esoterics Community, where we'll tell you firsthand about all of our services, events, courses, as well as intuitive development tips, card pulls, free meditations, lives. I'm going to start doing a bunch of more lives more. Hopefully Fiora will too, and just a lot more.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed today's episode, please share with a friend. It would mean the world to us, as it's as easy as sharing a screenshot on your Insta stories and tagging us. And thank you all for sharing space with us today. Stay mystical, magical, and ready to do it again next week.
Bye, guys. See you later.
Bye.